agencies that are involved here, to bring together us and them in terms of like how we're going to spend this money. So that's also been very helpful in a number of states, and I think we'll probably do more of that in 2023. So I'll stop there. I think that's kind of an overview of where things have gone to this point.
Thank you, Eric. I just briefly think you're underselling what you all brought to the table. And for us last year was the idea that you were willing to do the hard work, slow down, explain, catch us up. And by us, I mean labor folks, and really bring us along on this important issue. So I don't want folks to go away thinking, oh, that was easy work, because it really hasn't been easy work, but it's been important work. And I think as we learn more, I hope folks are going to put on their thinking hat and lift up some of the projects that maybe Reimagine will undertake going forward, and maybe use this as a model. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Coons with no T, and say Happy New Year to everybody, because I forgot to do that. And Jim, how have these connections been useful from your perspective in PA and just broad brush in our 4 states?
Thanks, Lee, and thanks everybody for being here today. My name is Jim Coons. I'm the administrator of the Pennsylvania Foundation for Fair Contracting, a labor nonprofit that works on wage theft and other violations of wage and hour law on behalf of workers, and we're affiliated, and I myself am a member of the International Union of Operating Engineers. And, Lee, that's a great question, because too often we get very siloed. All of the different organizations, environmental, nonprofit, all the various types of nonprofits, even amongst organized labor, we often will get siloed. We'll often reinvent the wheel, be working on the same exact thing at the same time without sharing resources and expertise. And for labor specifically, we are often invited at the last moment to sign off on the work that an organization has done on our behalf. Oftentimes, organized labor is asked right before something is submitted, with perhaps little or even no time to alter it, to say, hey, we have solved the labor issue. We have solved the union issue in this field without talking to you before. Here's our solve. Can you just, lend us your support, your political capital, etc. When in this particular instance, we got invited to the table at the beginning. And because of that, as Eric pointed out, we were able to collaborate from the beginning and share our expertise. Just like I need Eric and his team at Orvie and the various other groups affiliated with Reimagine to talk about certain aspects of abandoned mines that I'm not focused on, because I am focused on my world of wages and worker rights and standards for contractors. So too does Eric. I think Eric has probably learned more about prevailing wage in the last year than he ever did. And you're going to see this at the federal level. Ruku and Winnie come to this from 2 different departments, 2 different areas of the federal government. They each have their specialization, and through that collaborative process, we're able to, come up with rules to help guide this federal infrastructure money, specifically abandoned mines, into creating good jobs. So for us, very important is we just want to be at the table at the beginning to offer our insight, our knowledge about the conditions that construction workers work under, what we know through our experience, through our research, etc., to help level that playing field and create a procurement model to implement certain rules, which, like Eric's going to talk about apprenticeships on the later panel, I'm going to talk a lot about those types of rules and suggestions on a panel after this, in fact, for more details. But being in the room to have those conversations, to see what stuff we could all agree on, and then come together and offer up a single, well thought out suggestion and thoughts to the Department of Interior to help, guide them from our standpoint, from the people that are working on the ground. And because of that collaboration early on, there wasn't any fighting at the end when we sat down to craft the information that we sent on. And then again, it gives us time, like Eric pointed out, to reach out to our contractors, to reach out to our connections within state and local governments that perhaps Eric's organization or other organizations don't have access to, and activate those and empower those individuals to enhance this ask, so that, again, the goal is to create the most comprehensive set of guidance and structures to benefit the region, to benefit workers, to benefit communities. If you don't have a representative from one of those aspects at the table, how are you going to accomplish that? So that's what I have to say.
Oh, Jim, you give me, it's amazing. Anyway, we'll get back to you, and Lonnie, I see you're on. I hope we can get your perspective. But right now I'm going to turn it over to our acronym folks, DOI, Winnie, and Ruku. And I'll ask you both sort of the same question and answer it in any way you want, but please remember to introduce yourself first. Why is this collaboration important to your agencies? And are we adding value?
I'll start off, Lee. Thanks. Winnie Stackelberg. I'm Senior Advisor and Infrastructure Coordinator at the Department of the Interior. And I'm just thrilled to be part of this breakout session and the Reimagine conversation and coalition. I guess the easy answer is, Lee, to your question, we at the Department of the Interior, under Secretary Holland's leadership, working for President Biden and this administration, wouldn't do it any other way. Sort of collaboration, communication, and working with key stakeholders like you all is baked into, is the cornerstone of what we do. When you talk about the infrastructure law in the first instance, and the collaboration that went in to engage and advocate for this historic transformative investment, that wouldn't have been done without partners like all of you who are a part of this incredible collaboration. There have been mentions of the AML $11.3 billion investment, which will be transformative and may in fact go toward cleaning up and remediating and reclaiming almost all of the abandoned mine lands in this country, which is phenomenal. But we won't be able to do that unless we work in a collaborative fashion. I think someone mentioned earlier that the dollars go to states. That is going to be how the states spend that money in letting contracts is going to be informed by the guidance that we issued that we did in collaboration with many of you and others. But that's only like either the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end, depending on how you look at it. Each state is going to interpret that guidance in a different way. Some are going to be more progressive. Some are going to be less progressive. That's where the collaboration really takes off. That's where I get excited about the work that we have to do together. We have to hold states accountable. We have to hold contractors accountable. We have to talk about what's going well and what's not going well. But if we don't do it in a collaborative way, someone mentioned silos, if we don't do it by breaking down our silos, by using informal and formal channels, it's not going to work. We've already had a couple of roundtables in states, Kentucky being one of them, but others on the way. And to me, it's that kind of collaboration that's going to advance our shared goals. I think we have a common set of shared goals when it comes to good paying union jobs, when it comes to contracts, when it comes to workforce development, but we have different ways of getting there. For some, it's going to be writing a press release and getting a news story saying that the Department of the Interior isn't implementing the guidance as aggressively as they should. I'm going to hate that, but that might be a really great way to move the ball forward. Someone else is going to call me up and say, hey, can we figure out a way to meet with the Office of Surface Mining Reclamation Enforcement, OSMRE, DOI office that actually works with the states on the AML program. Someone else is going to say, hey, can we figure out a way to get to the state AML folks? Can we get to the governor's office? Can we get to labor? So all of these tools that we have available will be better used, will be more effective, will be able to reach our goals if we collaborate on sort of seeing collectively the end goal and then figuring out how to get there. The last thing I'll say is that there are a lot of dependencies when it comes to the implementation of the AML program. And it's only with the collaboration of identifying what has to come first and what we need to prioritize when it comes to contracts and good paying union jobs and apprenticeships or local hire. Only through that kind of collaboration and communication are we going to be able to get the results that benefit the most people, create the most jobs, contribute to economic development in communities, and really move this historic opportunity forward. I can't wait to continue the work that we've already begun, and look forward to working with all of you to achieve those goals. So thanks, Lee, and back to you.
Winnie, thank you. You know how I feel about you. You have been amazing advocate for all of us that have crossed your paths, and it's just been great working. Roku is sort of a late joiner to our coalition, but we welcomed her with open arms because we had a lot of questions for her department, and I'm hoping you can introduce yourself and tell us where you've got skin in this game, honey.
Absolutely. I'm Ruku Singla. I'm a policy advisor with the Department of Labor's Good Jobs Initiative. Just as a quick piece of background, Secretary Walsh started the Good Jobs Initiative close to a year ago now, in response to the transformative investment that the bipartisan infrastructure law is. Recognizing that this is an opportunity not only to physically transform the country, but also metaphorically transform what is possible for communities, particularly those communities who have been neglected or without access to the types of resources that we know the federal government can bring to bear. And so recognizing that the dollars are actually flowing through a number of different federal agencies, and wanting to think about how can the Department of Labor, harnessing our expertise that comes from enforcing key labor laws, as well as our programmatic aspects of working on registered apprenticeship programs, ensuring that women workers, veteran workers, workers with disabilities have access to these workforce development pathways. How can we package up that expertise and make sure that we're working with our sister federal agencies who are actually putting out these program dollars to make sure that we are using our federal investments to create good jobs? So the first thing that we did was to figure out, okay, what are we talking about when we say good jobs? Eric mentioned a couple of those policies that we're thinking about here, registered apprenticeship programs, ensuring that folks are in compliance with Davis-Bacon. So we wanted to make sure to put those down on paper. And I'm just going to throw a couple of links in the chat for folks to noodle on a little bit later, just as background for the Good Jobs Initiative. But we have been really grateful to work with partners like Winnie and the implementation team at the Department of Interior. And that partnership is really what we're also hoping to have happen on the ground. So we've worked together on the front end to think about what the guidance can look like, what's possible from a legal and statutory perspective to actually require, but it's just the first step to get words on the page and guidance. And we know the reality of how that plays out in these programs is informed by what this group and the other folks who have already spoken are actually hearing and seeing in their communities. And so I have been really grateful to come to this group and to see the collaboration that has been built out and making sure that that labor and community organizations, folks with subject matter expertise, are all working together to think about what is our best way to advocate and to engage with the state and other stakeholders to make these encouragements from the federal government a reality in how these programs are playing out. And so I would just say we're trying to model at the federal level what we're hoping to see play out on the local level. And so the collaboration in terms of how the Department of Labor is working with the Department of Interior and how we're working with other agencies, we really want to generate the, I think actually someone from, this came up in a previous conversation where we talked about how do we get a good jobs initiative started at the state level? How can we make sure that all these different stakeholders are coming together and talking to each other? And so I will just say that we have worked on some concrete pieces that we're hoping are helpful to those advocates and stakeholders to make sure that these policies are actually enacted. But we know that the landscape looks different in every state, depending on what the particular posture is with respect to state law, the relationships that might exist, pre-existing programs. But we know that our secretary, and we know this entire administration, is committed to the creation of good paying union jobs. And so I would also just say that I think this collaboration is a great example of what we would love to see happen in more places, and that our door is also open to hear how the U.S. Department of Labor can be more helpful to ensure that these types of partnerships and collaborations can happen in more places. Back to you, Lee.
Thank you, Ruku. That's good stuff. And we're so happy you've joined us and making a difference. Lonnie, do you mind sharing with us, because Ruku called out her boss, who happens to be a card-carrying member of the Laborers, and Winnie also mentioned, a roundtable that was held in Kentucky that I think you were part of. Would you mind just giving us a couple minutes of your perspective on this coalition, collaboration, where it's been helpful and, good stuff, and maybe not good stuff?
Sure. I'll be brief. Just to start off, to Winnie's point, collaboration. I mean, in my career, I don't know of a time, and James could probably speak on this. I don't know of a time that labor has ever collaborated with the different government agencies and different folks like the Ohio River Valley Institute. I don't know of a time in my career that we have all collaborated and got on the same page with the same shared goals. And so the success that we've had, Lee, you brought up the roundtable, things like that, and the progress that we've made in Kentucky through the help of Eric Dixon and Rebecca and those folks. I don't believe we'd be this far. I don't believe some of those things would have ever happened if it wasn't for the collaboration. So, my hat's off to everybody on this call and everybody that's been on our team. So, but yes, in terms of the roundtable we had in Kentucky, it was unbelievable to have all the different unions in there, and having the secretary in there, and Winnie and Ruku and everybody from the administration. So it was just it was an amazing getting a sit down like that and actually just laying it all out on the table, having that initial meeting. And then it just springboarding off that all the way up to the governor's office. So without going into detail, it was a really great event. It turned out really well, and I think the Kentucky model could be replicated in several other parts of the country and be very successful. And so I'll leave it at that. I know we're on a time schedule, so.
Oh, time. Lonnie, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. But you did forget to say your name and your organization. Sorry.
Yes, I apologize. Lonnie Calvert. I'm with the Laborers International Union of North America. I mainly work in Kentucky and Ohio, but I'm out of the Ohio Valley Southern States region, and my title is field coordinator, and we go from Ohio all the way down to Florida.
Thank you, Lonnie. Yeah, it's just been a pleasure watching this coalition start with baby steps and grow and grow and grow. We have folks joining us that have heard about us somehow, and we're bringing folks up to speed, and hopefully I think we're making a difference. Eric, Jim, to the whole panel, how do we replicate this? And with what subject matter do we? And that's the subject matter piece. I'd like for folks that have joined us, you know, to either put in the chat, just take yourself off mute, shout out, you know, what other big picture ticket items could we build a coalition to work on something as collaborative as we have done around AML? And panel, to you guys, where do we go from here?
Well, I guess I'll go first and say that, you know, the amazing thing about, you know, the bipartisan infrastructure law, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and potentially more things to come, we'll see what happens now, is that a lot of small programs have seen a massive increase in funding. I'm less worried about roads and bridges because the infrastructure to sort of guide that along the way has been there, and those groups were activated the minute that money was announced. But AML serves as a really great example where, you know, Pennsylvania, as a specific example, went from $25 million a year budget to probably going to be north of $300 million every year, based upon, you know, what they apply for and how successful they are and all the metrics that DOI has for distributing the money. But that is a tremendous growth. The same thing happened in abandoned wells. So I think really, if your organization, and I see a lot of representation from many different organizations here, you know, is working in a specific area and needs to advocate on behalf of that area, then you just have to do it. You know, Reimagine is going to continue to build these coalitions, but it's not going to be the end all answer to every problem within, you know, solving this. So like, if your organization is working in a specific area and sees that there's an available influx of money that's going to be in that world, then you start that you know, process, reach out through Reimagine to see if it's a partner to help, you know, build these collaborative efforts. And then I think really the key is, like everyone has said here, is just get everybody at the table and get them there as soon as you can. And be humble and know that you're going to disagree about some stuff, and some stuff you're not going to, you know, everybody's just going to silently agree to not bring up, you know, but that's how collaborations work. And we'll, you know, you work on those issues on the side and advocate for them. But I think the first step is you identify, you know, where the money is and what's changed and what's available. And then you put together a group. And I think groups are all going to be very similar. Somebody that represents the world that the money is being spent in, you know, whether it's broadband or abandoned mines or orphaned wells, or even roads and bridges, if you wanted to do that, a specific type of infrastructure, maybe bus modernization or what have you. You should, from my standpoint, always is include somebody that represents the people that work in that world, so that they can bring their knowledge, their advice, their experience to that. Bring somebody from the communities that work will affect directly, and start there. And then as you get to questions that you can't answer because you don't have the expertise at the table, that's a moment to say, okay, we don't know the answer. Let's find the person with the answer and let's bring them to the table full time. Not, hey, can you answer this question? Thanks, goodbye. We'll just interpret what you told us. But hey, can you come and guide us through this question and then be there to answer it as we continue down this path. I think that's the important thing.
All right.
Lee, I think it's a really great question, because in light of all of the policies and incentives that we've heard about in the plenary, we are really at a historic moment in terms of the growth of what you might call the green construction sector nationally, but in our region in particular, because there's such a long history of energy production, that a lot of those incentives, as we heard about, are targeted towards places like Appalachia. And I'm thinking about stuff like abandoned mine land reclamation, but also well plugging, water line work, solar development and wind development, as incentivized in the Inflation Reduction Act, and all of the manufacturing facilities that need to be retrofitted and built. Like, all of that is building trades work. And that is just a gargantuan amount of work that's going to happen in the next 10 to 20 years. I mean, it is absolutely massive. So it gets me really excited. I'm not exactly sure what the next one of those particularly, like, that maybe our coalition works on, but I have a feeling it's going to be one or multiple of them. And the way that I'm kind of thinking about it is like, where is there the most inertia among our partners to kind of work on next? But I'm hoping over time we work on all of them, and we think about them holistically in terms of a way to build out green union jobs, even in places like rural areas in Appalachia that don't have a high union density right now. Like, a lot of those projects are going to be built in counties that, don't have that right now. So I think it is really a overlooked part of an opportunity, but part of the legislation that's been passed in the past few years. Because if you tie all those together, there's something that really can come together, and it has to be built on the trust that we kind of talked about. And that's why I think this collaboration around abandoned mine lands has been so exciting, because like that program is it's dear to my heart personally, and I think it's important, but it's also an opportunity for us to just get to know each other and build trust and do something bigger.
Lee, sorry, go ahead, Ruku, you go first. Go ahead.
I was just going to add that I think it can be daunting to think about, applying this model to all the different programs that are out there. You got broadband, you got roads and bridges, you have EV charging, all these different components. And I think that from our perspective, it's a lot of the same tools. It's just getting it in front of the right audience. And so, there will be some different stakeholders who are going to come to the table, but to Eric's point that he just mentioned, the amount that is the building trades work, the amount of construction that is happening across all of these projects is just a mind-boggling amount of billions and billions of dollars. And so, and I think sort of demystifying some of the funds and being clear about who are the people you want at the table across these different programs, that can help make sure that this collaborative work goes further than just a single infrastructure program. Winnie, over to you.
I totally agree. And I was going to answer the question, Lee, just to say, I think the biggest opportunity and where collaboration can work is around creating good paying union jobs and economic revitalization. So whether it's in the AML program or orphan wells or broadband or roads and bridges or, ecosystem restoration, lead pipe, whatever it is, I think that's the biggest opportunity is job creation. And having listened in a couple of the roundtables to the passion with which our brothers and sisters from labor talk about, this isn't about a job, this is about a career, is really essential. And I think through not just the abandoned mine land program, but all of the investment from the infrastructure law, that's a place for collaboration. As the chat is showing, the AML guidance, yes, does say states should prioritize. We are encouraging states to hire people who were formerly in the coal industry. But the legislation doesn't enable us to require that states do this. So this is where collaboration is really important. We've got to work with all of you, with outside stakeholders, with labor, with the state apparatus, with those who are getting the contracts, to push for retraining of out of work coal miners, out of work people who have been in the coal industry more broadly, and work on economic revitalization for communities. And we do want to do that, but it has to be, I think, a state-by-state approach, because what is going to work in Kentucky isn't going to work in Ohio or Pennsylvania or Illinois or Indiana or West Virginia, Maryland, and all the other states. There'll be lessons that we can learn and apply, but we're going to have to refine our thinking, strategize, come up with new plans for each state, shift midstream if something changes. And that's the kind of work that I'm excited about doing, because we've got federal partners who are eager to sit down and do the work, and really smart people like all of you to be collaborators and partners.
I'm just going to take this second to selfishly plug workshop 2E for those who are interested in understanding like what policies would create these family sustaining, life changing careers, and what we can do to actually turn this huge investment into something that actually does change lives and creates generational wealth, and can do that broadly, especially here in the Appalachian region, which, despite essentially building and carrying the Industrial Revolution on its back, has often been forgotten and left to, as we like to say, rust. And here's this opportunity to go back in and repay the debt to the workers that did that.
You betcha. I'm going to say this because we've been on this for now 47 minutes, and we all make it sound very easy, right? Like we've all just come together. And remember, this has been at minimum a year in the making, right? And it's ongoing. We're not close to the finish line, but what we are is plugging away at it and committed to sharing all of our resources, our knowledge, and expertise. So in this world of instantaneous gratification, I don't want folks to think, oh, we're going to copy this and we're going to solve the next problem in 10 days, because that's just not where we're at. But it is something that I hope folks will take a look at. And to that, all you folks that have graciously joined, I hope, we did get one question in the chat, but come off mute and tell us your thoughts about, what you, one, thought about this workshop, and two, what are your areas of expertise? Where could we plug in a coalition such as this into your organization or your thoughts? Yes, Dana, go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to say, I know I had to join late because I was doing back end work for the event, but Eric, did you share some of your blogs in the chat when we started that have, write-ups of some of this work? And I can also share, we actually created some letters and some materials if folks want to see some of the actual written things that came out of this work, if those haven't been shared in the chat. And I apologize if I missed it. And then two, after this workshop, to Emily's question, you'll all get bumped back into the main room, and then you can select your next workshop. So you'll just follow the flow. We'll move you there. Just stay on the line. And then three, I just want to echo what Lee was saying. This didn't happen magically. I think, from the mine reclamation side, that's my policy background, is in mine reclamation. We started talking about this, in August when the bill was passed. This is great, but as activists in Appalachia, our first thought is suspicion. We're like, yeah, but it won't be used the right way. So we immediately were like, okay, so what do we do about that? You know, we don't like to win. We like to pick out the failures in the win. No. And so we started having that conversation even in August. And I think our first meeting of this actual team ended up being in January. And then it was March before the papers were coming out. And yeah, and then Reimagine Appalachia enjoyed this model so much. And we built those relationships up that we were able to translate that into our broadband work, which is happening, which Steve is going to highlight in our next session. But, you know, we were able to say, like, we actually got introductions, that literally said, hey, these guys are doing a decent job on this Mindland stuff. They're worth talking to on broadband. So it really was just to say, you know, the relationships are so important. The honesty, the transparency, and the patience. You say, I've heard our friends at Coalfield Development say they build at the speed of trust. And it's hard to speed up trust. So, but if you don't have that step, then you, it's like a house of cards. It can just fall down. So, but yeah, I apologize. And Steve, I see you're off mute. Let's hear from Steve.
Yeah, I just was gonna amplify the broadband point. I mean, useful.
Steve, you're amplifying the broadband point by not being able to hear you. So that's a really excellent advertisement for the need for broadband.
Is that better?
I can hear you a little bit better now.
How's that? How's that?
Better, yes.
Okay, I'm getting, okay. So the first thing is that the Kentucky meeting sounds like a nice model in terms of elevating at the state level the need for these standards in broadband. So that's, and then even though I knew it before, the penny didn't quite drop until this session. The industries are different, but the way in which the ML process brought in the contractors at some point, you know, that have some additional weight in terms of state policymakers, you know, we can work that in broadband as well. So those are two very concrete kind of adaptation kinds of ideas that I really appreciate this group for helping the broadband effort.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for that beautiful, beautiful summary in the chat there, Eric, and that'll go in the notes. We have just a couple minutes. Sorry, Lee, I'm such a natural facilitator. I'm like in my zone here. It's your time.
No, you do what I don't, which is keep everybody on track. So you go.
No, I mean, we just only have 2 minutes left, but, you know, I think y'all been busy listening, but I just want to say this is, you know, this work will continue, and we're interested in other places where Reimagine can be a value add. So please be in touch if there's other issues that, you know, could use this kind of collaboration deep dive, or if we can, you know, if you're doing this work and leading it and you want to have a conversation about kind of lessons learned in a more specific way, you know, it's just one email away. Be in touch.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that. You know, everybody says be in touch. But how do folks get in touch with Reimagine?
Yeah, so I just put my email in the chat. You can also email Molly. Molly Updegrove is our outreach coordinator, and so she is a wizard at awesome. She's better at following. She's better with her inbox than I am. Not going to lie. And then we also have twice monthly campaign update meetings, and I would invite all of you guys if you're interested in showcasing your organization and actually joining us in doing a little presentation. But those are open meetings where we talk about, you know, what we're up to. We try to make them quick and dynamic, and we have a lot of guest speakers. And so those are and we have our events page. But yeah, me and Molly. All right, it looks like we have 1 minute left. Any last thoughts?
Oh.
I would like to say, in terms of broadband, if anybody needs to reach out, to myself in terms of labor or contracting, we've dealt with some issues in the past with Google Fiber and AT&T in Tennessee and Kentucky. So I would be more than willing to jump on a call and help with that.
You are going to get a call, Lonnie.
Yes, you are. Thank you. Thank you. Way to put your hand up. Good man. Good man.
There were you can't see it, but there were fireworks coming out of Steve's brain when you said that. So that's just what we're looking for, especially where folks have seen issues where high road implementation wasn't used, because we really want to make the point that, oh, I have 5 minutes, but like doing this work right saves time.
We just allow